I completed a massive literature review to compile clinical studies involving the ingestion of essential oils to help give some guidance to clinicians on what they should be telling their patients. The doses used in the studies that I found at the time ranged from 50 microliters to 3 milliliters daily, and they reported few, if any, adverse events at those doses. The most common complaint was that people burped the oils up, so they just didn't like burping the oils back. In fact, there have been some clinical trials, for example, involving lavender essential oil ingestion, that the group that ingested the lavender reported fewer adverse events than the placebo group did.
All right, welcome back to the podcast. We're really excited to have a special guest today. We have Dr. Scott Johnson. He is the author of 20 books. He's a clinical aromatherapist. But what I love most about your story, Scott, is that the reason that you actually got pivoted into natural health and wellness and essential oils specifically is because you had a medical condition that you struggled with, and you looked to some natural remedies for that. And that really got you studying the world of clinical aromatherapy. And now you educate thousands and thousands of people. You help to empower them with your resources on how to utilize the essential oils and use it for their own health and wellness. And I just think that without these resources, I know me using essential oils over 20 years ago and just using them to raise my children, I didn't have a lot of resources. So my poor children were the guinea pigs, right? So I love your books. My favorite book is this one, Surviving When Modern Medicine Fails, an incredible resource. I mean, all of your books are great. So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your family, your journey. And then we'll dive into some myth busting on essential oils, because nobody better to ask than you.
Yeah. You know, just addressing one thing you said, 20 years ago, you were using essential oils and probably just you learning by trial and error, because that was one of the things that frustrated me when I first came into essential oils as well, was that I felt like that there was just a lot of conflicting opinions, and there wasn't just a definitive resource that was based on evidence and science. And so that's why I started to write my books. But a little bit about me. Yeah, I did get into the natural health space because I had my own condition that I was diagnosed with called ankylosing spondylitis. And it just was, I felt like what the regular medical community or the allopathic community was trying to do for me was actually making my situation and my health worse. And I thought there had to be a better way to handle that condition. So through a lot of painstaking research and trial and error, I found some natural remedies that really helped me turn my life around and feel much better. And that gave me a really deep desire to be able to help others do the same. Because I thought, if I can do that without any training and just through a lot of research, then what could I do if I had some training behind me? And so that's why I decided to pursue my education. I shifted it from studying business management to natural health and completed a doctorate in naturopathy. And one of the things that fascinated me during that training was they had a course that I was required to take that talked about essential oils, but it lumped them in with Bach flower remedies. And it talked about how these essential oils were the most potent natural solutions available to us. But then out of the same breath, they told me that all I could do is inhale them and influence my emotions. And I thought, this makes no sense from a logical perspective. You just told me they're the most potent remedies, but
Right.
I can't do anything but make myself feel happy or reduce stress with them. That made no sense. So that kind of sent me on an additional journey to pursue what essential oils can really do. I started to dive into the research. From a personal perspective, I'm a very family man, I would call myself. I live a very faith-centered life as well. And so I have 3 children that are 3 girls and 1 boy, 4 children total. And I think that my wife is a saint because she endures all of the time that I take it away sitting in front of a computer writing books or researching or being on a podcast or whatever I'm doing. She tolerates that very well and supports me in those efforts. And so I'm really grateful for her support.
Oh, she sounds like an amazing woman, and your kids are lucky to have you, especially that faith-centered. We're big on that in our family too, and just something we absolutely all need. So yeah, thank you for giving us that background. I also think I heard that you have written a chapter for medical students. Was that correct? Like a chapter on like allopathic aromatherapy type of modalities for the medical students. Is that right? They chose you to do that, which is really cool.
Yeah, I was given the opportunity with a colleague of mine. They asked us to co-write, although I would say I probably wrote 90% of the chapter. But we wrote a chapter in a textbook that it's a medical textbook that is intended to get clinicians that are more allopathic in nature kind of a primer or just a little toe dip into various different modalities that they could potentially add as part of an integrative practice. And so, yeah, I was fortunate enough to write the chapter on essential oils for that textbook.
We're very grateful that they chose you to do that because you have such extensive research, and I love what you teach. And we'll definitely drop the platforms where people can connect with you because you're always putting out the latest research, and it's just really good that you stay on top of it where I don't feel like I have to continue researching. I look to you as the expert in that field. So we're just really thankful for all the work that you have done for us. But one thing that I have really enjoyed on your platforms, which people could go check that out, is you're really good at like debunking the myths that are out there. And so I have came across a lot of it. Obviously, I was kind of before the times. I mean, a lot of people now, since COVID especially, are very into their like figuring out their own health and wellness, doing things more naturally. And so it's more accepted now. But back when, 23 years ago when I was doing it, I was kind of, people were like, is she a witch doctor? Like, she doesn't use medicine. What is she doing? But one of the things that you specifically said in your introduction was about how when you were trying to figure out your condition with ankylosing spondylitis, that you were like, all they told me up was you was like inhale essential oils. And I think that's what most people think when I tell them, oh, I work with essential oils and aromatherapy. They automatically assume I'm just walking around inhaling stuff, or they think that their Glade plugin is equivalent to an essential oil.
Right.
But we have used them as our natural medicine. We have used them internally on my kids as they've grown. So ingesting essential oils, that is a huge concern. And it is a concern if you're using certain brands, obviously. Yes. Yet tell us a little bit about why ingesting essential oils, and obviously there are specific essential oils that we might want to stay away from, but tell us a little bit about ingesting essential oils, why it's safe, where the scientific evidence comes from for it, what your perspective is on it, since you've studied whatever 20,000 medical documents and research and things on essential oils. But yeah, I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most frequently things that I get asked. I get a lot of messages on my social media, and that's probably among the most common that I receive is they're saying, I've just been told by an herbalist or my doctor or this aromatherapist that I should never ingest essential oils. And really, it's a frustrating thing that this is still even perpetuated, because I really feel like it is not only misguided, but it is completely antiquated to say you can't ingest essential oils. Our body is used to processing the constituents found in essential oils from foods, from herbs, from spices we consume on a regular basis. I'll give a couple examples of that. Linalool is found in lavender essential oil. We all know that. If you're in aromatherapy or use essential oils, you know linalool is just synonymous with lavender. But it's also found in coriander spice. Alpha-terpineol is found in lime, clary sage, and other essential oils, and also consumed when you drink cranberry juice. Even methyl salicylate, the dominant compound that's found in wintergreen and birch essential oils is found in tomatoes, peaches, and bilberries.
Really?
So
I did not know that.
some argue that the body, is only used to processing small amounts of essential oils, and that's true to an extent, but I would say it's only partly true, because a great example of this is eating an orange. The average fruit from a medium orange contains between 65 and 450 milligrams of limonene. And that's just the fruit. I'm not talking about the rind. There's higher content actually in the rind or the peel. But in the fruit itself, you're consuming between 65 and 450 milligrams of limonene if you can eat a medium orange. That's equivalent to consuming between 1.4 and 9.5 drops of orange essential oil. So it's obvious that we have these foods that we're consuming on a regular basis that our body is used to consuming. You mentioned the medical textbook that I contributed a chapter on essential oils to. When I was writing that, I completed a massive literature review to compile clinical studies involving the ingestion of essential oils to help give some guidance to clinicians on what they should be telling their patients. The doses used in the studies that I found at the time ranged from 50 microliters to 3 milliliters daily, and they reported few, if any, adverse events at those doses. The most common complaint was that people burped the oils up, so they just didn't like burping the oils back. In fact, there have been some clinical trials, for example, involving lavender essential oil ingestion, that the group that ingested the lavender reported fewer adverse events than the placebo group did. So the evidence is really abundantly in favor of ingesting essential oils, and that they're safe when reasonable amounts are consumed. You kind of alluded to this. The most important part is to only ingest high-quality, pure essential oils, and to remember that ingesting essential oils provides a greater potential of interactions with medications.
Right. And your books are so good at explaining any potential interaction with a medication. You have that spelled out beautifully in there. So do you ingest essential oils?
Absolutely. All the time. In fact, I like to add them to my protein smoothies after my workout. So this morning, I had a chocolate protein smoothie and I added tangerine oil to it. It basically tastes like you're drinking one of those chocolate oranges from Christmas. So.
Yum. That's so good. So I don't know if you know this offhand, but when you were talking about I don't know if it was the dosages for the studies, I don't know, it was something to 30 milliliters. I don't know if it's a microliter to 30 milliliters. Do you know what that would equate to in drops per se? Because that's kind of what we're used to measuring. Do you have any clue about what that would look like?
Yeah, the low end 50 microliters is roughly around a little less than probably a drop, or right around a drop is where it's at. 3 milliliters is obviously going to be much higher than that. Right. That's more like just around 65 drops, so it's pretty high, the amount that people are consuming.
Right. And I mean, it's rare in a day that you would even consume that much. I mean, there's been times when we've been in, cute situations where we might, but it's not like it's a daily thing. So I feel like, our bodies do tolerate that really well. And I love how you explained what an orange contains and what it equates to. And that's just one orange. I mean, sometimes my grandson will eat like 3 oranges. He's just wants to eat them all. So, and my children have used essential oils for many years since, they were little, and now they're a lot older. So I love that you broke it down there. So I guess you sort of hit on this a little bit. Are there scientific studies supporting the safe use of essential oils? Is there a lot out there, or is that just kind of there are more studies being done. Most studies, right, have been done on animals and things in the past, but there's more clinical studies being done on aromatherapy and essential oils today. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. There are clinical studies that are investigating the ingestion of essential oils. I would say that that's less common in the literature, largely because of this continuation of the prevailing belief that you shouldn't ingest essential oils. Although it's widely done in like Europe and countries like France. You can go to the pharmacy and get over-the-counter soft gels full of them, and it's done in Brazil and even in countries like Iran. It's part of their hospital system, and so they use essential oils quite regularly. But there's studies that have ingested essential oils like lavender and peppermint, anise, caraway, lemongrass, oregano, turmeric, garlic, rose, and more. There's even clinical studies ingesting isolated constituents from essential oils like limonene. And so some of these have established pretty good dosing where the dosing's been dialed in. For lavender, it's well established at 80 milligrams, which is about 2 drops, 1 to 2 times daily. Peppermint is well established at 180 to 400 milligrams, or roughly 4 to 9 drops. Before meals. So there is a lot of research, but I would say we need to continue to pursue that and continue to dial in dosing for more and more of these essential oils so we're using the right amount to have the effects we want.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I only ever promote the use of doTERRA's essential oils internally, just based on research I've done personally, what I trust with my family. So it's not like we're saying like go to the, I don't know, any health food store, or they even sell essential oils at gas stations sometimes, right? Yeah. Like they're everywhere. So we're not saying like just go grab any essential oil and start like downing it. Right. Be diligent on resources, get some books that you write, and get some education around that. All right. So I feel like we helped people understand that ingesting essential oils is not a no in all ways. We definitely can benefit from this. I know we've benefited from it. We've used essential oils internally for over 20 years. Still here. Liver's paid. So, yeah. But let's move on to the second question. I know that frankincense essential oil has been known from back birth of baby Jesus. Like we've heard about frankincense oil as the gift brought to him. But one thing that a lot of people seem to get confused on is the fact that they think boswellic acid is in frankincense oil. This has been, I feel like, in many of my years of essential oils teaching in classes, not to the level that you do, but just teaching about essential oils, that question gets asked a lot. Can you tell us about boswellic acid? Is it in frankincense? And then if it is, why is it not in the essential oil? Or is it in the essential oil? And yeah, dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, frankincense, the resin itself, contains high amounts of boswellic acids, and it depends on the species that you're getting the boswellic acids from. Boswellia serrata tends to be the one that the most commercial Boswellia serrata extracts or boswellic acid extracts come from. But a truly distilled or hydrodistilled frankincense essential oil does not contain boswellic acids. Both of those methods of distillation capture volatile organic constituents and then only trace to very small amounts of semi-volatile and non-volatile constituents. While most people think essential oils only contain volatile constituents, these semi and non-volatile constituents can actually be captured due to vapor pressure and temperature that allows volatile constituents to act almost like carrier molecules and carry them through the steam, especially during extended distillation times. The longer the distillation time, the higher amounts of semi and non-volatile constituents you will get in your end product. The reason boswellic acids are not present in a distilled oil is because they are very large, heavy, non-volatile triterpenoids. And because they are non-volatile and very large molecules, they don't typically get extracted during distillation. There is some confusion about this because of 2 published studies, though, that I want to mention. There are 2 published studies that claim boswellic acids are present in essential oils. The first is by Suhail and colleagues, published in 2011. However, they did not disclose in their published research, but it has been confirmed privately by researchers, including me in private communications, that the fact that they use what's called vacuum distillation, which is not used for commercial distillation of frankincense essential oil. By reducing the pressure in the system, vacuum distillation actually significantly lowers the boiling points of substances. And this allows for the distillation of higher molecular weight compounds like boswellic acids at much lower temperatures than their normal boiling points. Vacuum distillation also separates components based on differences in their vapor pressure at that reduced pressure. So higher molecular weight substances, while having high boiling points at atmospheric pressure, can still exhibit sufficient vapor pressure at lower pressures to be distilled. The other study, that one was conducted by 𝘧 and colleagues in 2012, and it used fractional distillation of 12 hours. Again, this is not used for commercial production of frankincense essential oil, and usually is reserved to eliminate unwanted substances. So you'll use fractional distillations to remove like furanocoumarins and bergamot essential oils, so it's not going to be as sun sensitizing. Fractional distillation can be used to separate mixtures containing high molecular weight substances and significantly reduces the boiling points of those substances, which allows for the distillation of very high molecular weight compounds at much lower temperatures. And so really these two published studies that are creating confusion didn't use a true steam or hydrodistillation. So they don't meet the requirements to be called, to be a true essential oil. They're fractions of essential oils, and they're more extract-like because they're bringing heavier weight molecules into the end product.
Wow, that's fascinating. How you understand all that. I mean, I understand it better since you explained it. Very fascinating, all of the technologies used, and just to dive into it to that level. No, that's fascinating. So there are huge advantages to frankincense essential oil, health benefits. I mean, it was a gift given to baby Jesus, so very prized possession. But boswellic acid has huge benefits as well. So doTERRA actually just made a product where we have the boswellic acid and we have the frankincense oil in a capsule that you can take pre-made. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe some of your favorite uses for the frankincense essential oil and then the boswellic acid and how they work together?
Yeah, I love a product that has both because it's kind of uniting back the important or the bioactive molecules that are within frankincense itself. It unites the essential oil with the boswellic acids. And there's some synergy that can happen because of that. For one, they're both good at supporting a healthy inflammatory response. And so when you put them together, you could perhaps get a synergistic activity and have a better support of that healthy inflammatory response. I also really like both the frankincense essential oil and the boswellic acids, and there's research showing that they can be used for this to support immune system balance. Our immune system has to maintain a balance in its function to protect us from things we don't want in the body that could potentially cause an infection or cause harm, but then also not become so aggressive that it starts to attack our own cells and tissues and cause damage. And both the oil and the boswellic acids I really like for helping to promote that calm, balanced immune function and activity.
Oh, I love that description. And so, I don't know if you've ever done genetic testing on yourself. Knowing you probably have, but I had some done. We have a lot of autoimmunity in our family. And so I had some testing done to see if I carry that MTHFR mutation. And of course I do. And so it seems like inflammation does run rampant. And so I definitely utilize that capsule daily, especially if I have extra head tension from something, especially if I tapped into some eating some gluten, which I'm supposed to stay away from, causes that extra inflammation. And so it's very helpful for my body. So I don't know if you have utilized it that way, if you carry that gene or struggle with inflammation.
Yeah,
Like
for
that.
sure.
Yeah. So awesome. I love hearing that from you and your perspectives on frankincense. So thank you for clearing that up and helping us understand that. And then there has been, so we actually had a dentist on here on our podcast not too long ago, and holistic dentist, and talking about oral care and essential oils. So there was a recent social media trend suggesting to avoid essential oils in dental care products, which seems so strange because like all toothpaste is like mint and cinnamon, which almost always comes from an essential oil. So I'd like to hear the real story from you on what your thoughts are on is that a bad thing for dentists, to be using essential oils in oral care?
Yeah, this really stems from a belief that essential oils will harm the oral microbiome or the microbiota that's present in the oral cavity. Other mouthwashes, particularly alcohol-based ones, have been shown to negatively impact the oral microbiome by killing both beneficial and harmful microbes in the oral cavity. And in the same way, there's been a commercial mouthwash that has leveraged isolated constituents from essential oils, so kind of outside their natural complex substance in isolation for years. And so well-meaning dentists assume that this also applies to any mouth rinse or mouthwash that has essential oils, because essential oils are known to have antimicrobial activity. But the available evidence, including clinical studies, suggests that essential oils are actually selective, meaning that they are more prone to inhibiting or killing harmful microbes than they are beneficial microbes that we want to have in our oral cavity. So the current evidence suggests that essential oils are safe to use in the oral cavity and can actually be beneficial for both the gums and the teeth. I personally really like oils like myrrh and tea tree and peppermint, clove, and cinnamon for overall oral health.
Oh, I love those too. We've used them in our dental care for many, many years. There's something you said, which I've kind of heard little bits of, like that the essential oils are selective. They're going to kind of leave our good microbiome alone, and like the ones we don't want, they're going to kind of get rid of. But the counterpart to that is when we have an infection, we take an antibiotic, right? And it wipes out all. It's not selective, right?
It's not.
So I find it fascinating that plants know, like they know the good from the bad. That's crazy. Yeah, I love that you pointed that out. Amazing. So right now we actually are getting close to summertime, and I had saw something that you had shared, which I thought was really incredible. So chlorinated pools is where our kids will spend their entire summers. Even salt pools, which is primarily, like I've had a pool before and it was always a salt pool, but I mean, they do still generate chlorine. It's just a little more stable. So no matter if you're using a hot tub, a pool, a salt pool, you're still getting an exposure to chlorine. But those gases can be harmful. Everybody knows that. But it also keeps us from catching all the germs in the pool, in the cesspool. But is there anything that we can do for our bodies to support, our bodies as we are spending time with our largest organ dipped in chlorine?
Yeah. Yeah, an interesting preclinical study, it's probably the one that you're mentioning that I posted on my social media not too long ago, found that just inhaling thyme essential oil protected against the harmful effects of exposure to chlorine. Specifically, it shielded the lungs against damage caused by increased inflammation and oxidation occurring due to the chlorine exposure. So essentially, chlorine triggered an inflammatory and oxidative response in lung tissues that was protected against by thyme essential oil, supporting a healthy inflammatory response and acting as an antioxidant against oxidative stress. In addition to the thyme oil, some practical measures to take would be to hydrate well, rinse thoroughly after swimming in chlorinated pools, support your skin's natural barrier with oils like lavender, helichrysum, copaiba, and others.
Nice. Well, that was going to be my next question is, being that the preclinical study was on thyme, I mean, that's a really strong oil, especially to apply to your skin. Obviously, wouldn't want to undiluted, wouldn't be wise. I feel like in my time with my children as little babies and kids, I, of course, heard what a good oil that was for like combating different things and just protecting them and supporting immune system. And I'd put that on, and then my hand would have it, and I might touch their leg, even though, and then it would turn red, and I'm like, ah. So carrier oil. But would you say in just an inhalation, putting some in a diffuser? I mean, your house would smell like a pizza. Or how would you personally, say it was your kids heading off to the pool, what would you do for them? Diffuse or
Yeah, it might be a little bit strong if you're diffusing it because, like you said, it's a very herbaceous smelling essential oil. It's strong and potent in its smell. So you could potentially just take some of the essential oil and put it on a gauze pad and then have them inhale that as you're driving to the pool so that they can get it. Because when you're inhaling those molecules then are vaporizing and becoming volatile off of that pad and getting into the respiratory system where they can have that protective effect.
I think that's a brilliant suggestion. Yeah. Have some in the car. Put it in the air vent on the way, and then on the way home, picking them up. Yeah, that's brilliant. And then I know our After Sun Soother had a lot of the oils you mentioned to help create that barrier, or you could do a DIY, but just to spray that on. And some of our sunscreens have essential oils in it, so utilizing those sunscreens before the pool might be another way to help. I love that. Another big story that was out was a news report claiming that scented wax melts with essential oils promote volatile organic compounds and are extremely dangerous. So what are your thoughts on that, man?
Yeah, this one really involved journalistic overreach or erroneously extrapolating the findings of wax melts to essential oils. In essence, a Purdue University study highlighted that scented wax melts may pose a risk to respiratory health because they release nano-sized chemical particles into the air. And because essential oils contain volatile organic compounds, the journalist lumped essential oils in the wax melts in terms of their respiratory risk. However, volatile organic compounds are a broad category of organic chemicals that we encounter daily from plants, trees, and other sources. Most terpenes and essential oils are considered safe when they're used reasonably. The concern comes when they react with things like ozone in the atmosphere, especially when at higher temperatures. However, research indicates that these reactions between essential oils and the atmosphere don't reach unsafe levels in normal home environments. The article emphasized that wax melts produce nanoparticles, and that is a key difference between wax melts and essential oils because ultrasonic diffusers produce microparticles that are typically larger and less concerning than nanoparticles released by wax melts and even plug-in air fresheners. There's also likely a difference between solid or liquid nanoparticles that are emitted as soot or ultrafine combustion byproducts from wax melts and gaseous volatile organic compounds mixed with water that are emitted from diffusers. Based on the study and its calculations, the wax melts produced about 1 million nanoparticles per cubic centimeters of atmospheric nanoparticles. So that's a lot. And then another study looked at the volatile organic compounds that are emitted from ultrasonic diffusers and found that room air contained approximately 0.6 parts per billion immediately after diffusion, started, decreasing to below 0.1 parts per billion shortly thereafter. So a burning wax melt candle can produce thousands of times higher concentrations of particles than essential oil diffusers. Really meaning that the bottom line is essential oil diffusers do not pose the same risk as wax melts, and their benefits far outweigh any minimal risk.
Oh, I love that. I feel like I've heard that from a lot of people, especially even some like more educated people. They get very concerned with using essential oils in a baby's room or around animals. And so I love that. Obviously, it's nice to consult with a vet. We have Dr. Janet Rourke on our veterinary advisory board, but I love hearing the actual scientific evidence on how it's safe, why it's safe, and like you said, the benefits far outweigh any risk. And so thank you for like clarifying that for those who have heard that study and are choosing not to use essential oils in their home and not getting that benefit. I can't imagine life without essential oils in our home. I always laugh when people come to our house. They're like, we can smell the oils outside your house.
Yeah.
But I love that. Okay, so another myth that we hear is some people are saying inhaling essential oils is like chemical warfare in your lungs. Is this true? Is it a truth or is it a myth?
Yeah, this statement really is hyperbolic and designed to grab attention and instill fear. It's like clickbait, really. In reality, if we followed this logic, simply walking through a forest would be a chemical onslaught on your lungs. Trees and plants naturally release phytoncides, which are also known as terpenes that are found in essential oil world, which provide numerous health benefits. In fact, the Japanese government has spent lots of time researching, along with other scientists, and studied the benefits of this practice called forest bathing. They've studied it extensively, showing significant human health benefits to inhaling what was called chemical warfare. These studies have shown that forest bathing can reduce stress, elevate mood, enhance cognitive function, boost the immune system, lower blood pressure and heart rate, improve sleep, and even help support a healthy inflammatory response. So I just don't really put any credence to that hyperbolic statement of chemical warfare on your lungs.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome. I love how you lay that out, because I think that with the internet and social media and influencers, they can say anything and all of their followers believe it's true. So hearing it from a scientist, somebody who has the expertise, don't be afraid to hold your breath and not smell herbs, right? Of course. Definitely indoor air pollution is far more unhealthy than being outside in the forest. Okay, so another claim is that essential oils are processed with harsh chemicals like hexane. So is that valid, or is it just made up, or why are they coming up with this statement?
Yeah, this is really a complete misunderstanding of the definition of an essential oil. Essential oils are defined as highly aromatic substances and concentrated volatile compounds produced by steam or hydrodistillation, or they can be cold pressed from citrus rinds. If aromatic compounds are extracted using hexane, it is no longer an essential oil. It's actually defined as a concrete or a resinoid, which can then be further extracted with like an alcohol, ethanol, to create an absolute or an aromatic extract. So no, if it's truly an essential oil, it's not being processed with harsh chemicals like hexane, because that is no longer meeting the definition of an essential oil. It's now a concrete or resinoid that can be further extracted and become an absolute or aromatic extract.
Awesome. So do you use any absolutes yourself? What about a hydrosol? How is that different? Is that a different whole other thing that's getting the little water droplets at the top? That's a little different than an essential oil. Right now I'm like going on a rabbit trail. So I'm like, hydrosols, like what absolutes should we stay away from them? Maybe that's a better question.
No, I don't think you need to stay away from absolutes, but you would use them differently. They're generally reserved for aromatic and topical use, and we don't ingest them because they can have potential residues left over from the extraction process. And yeah, I do use them. I'll put some absolutes in blends that I create to diffuse around my home. As far as talking about a hydrosol, that's more like as you distill an essential oil, you have a mixture of water and the essential oil in a separator at the end of the process. And so the water that's left in that container is called a hydrolat or a hydrodistillate, hydrosol. There's various different names depending on who you want to talk to about it and what's the actual definition. But that's left over, and it has actually trace amounts of aromatic compounds left in it. And so it has some therapeutic benefit in and of itself. A lot of people like to use those for skin benefits, applying on the skin. And so, yeah, that's kind of the difference between all of those.
Okay. Sometimes I feel like I get them confused. Absolutes, hydrosols. I mean, obviously, I know a little bit about an essential oil, but all those other terms, good to understand and hash out those different definitions. Okay. So another question is lavender oil isn't really lavender. And so what's the truth behind adulteration and labeling of a lavender oil specifically?
Yeah, I think that can be showed in a couple of published studies. One was in Industrial Crops and Products, and the other was in the Journal of Pharmaceutical and Biomedical Analysis. And these studies evaluated commercial lavender essential oils, and the conclusion of these two studies was that the current commercial lavender essential oils that are available on the market, 59 to 90% of them are either poor quality or adulterated, with most of them being adulterated in some way. So some suppliers will substitute cheaper lavandin, which is a cousin of lavender, comes from a different species within the same family. Others add synthetic chemicals like synthetic linaloyl acetate, while others do a combination of both. And this increases profit for the supplier, but can harm a consumer who is unknowingly consuming synthetic chemicals. A good rule of thumb in regard to an oil is if it's far less expensive than other essential oils, it is likely poor quality or adulterated. Like when I see these 15 milliliter or 30 milliliter bottles of frankincense or helichrysum that are $10 or $15. I'm just going, there's no way that's a good quality oil. It has to be adulterated.
That's a good rule of thumb for sure. Yeah. And like mothers, they hear about lavender and they have a fussy baby and they want to put this oil on their baby. They could be doing more harm than good if they aren't getting a good quality oil. So I think that's awesome that you kind of hashed that out and helped us understand that. So are there legitimate concerns that essential oils can harm the liver, the brain, the lungs? You went a little bit into the lungs with some of our earlier conversation, but what's the understanding on that?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that because just prior to jumping on this, I was responding to a physician who had concerns about potential harm to the liver by ingesting essential oils. So, that only occurs in extreme amounts. Let's be real. Just because a substance is natural doesn't mean it can't cause harm. If a substance can't cause any harm, how can it be therapeutic? The difference between being therapeutic or harmful involves how much you use, how you're exposed, and for how long. But reasonable use of high-quality oils doesn't pose a risk to the vast majority of individuals. In fact, some clinical studies that monitored liver enzymes, which is a marker of your liver function during essential oil use and as part of a safety parameter within the study, found that liver markers improved after using the essential oils in the study.
Wow.
So sensitive populations could have a greater risk. For example, people prone to seizures, or maybe they have asthma or an already severely compromised liver. But most people are going to do fine with essential oils and don't have to worry about damaging the liver, brain, or lungs. They are more likely to experience what I call side benefits or improved liver function, cognition, and respiratory health.
That's incredible because, yeah, that is definitely the stigma that has been around for the internal usage of essential oils is keep watching your liver levels and things like that. So it's really comforting to hear that we actually have a side benefit to utilizing those essential oils internally. So we touched a little bit on microbiome with oral health with that topic, but when we look at microbiome and even prebiotics, can you tell us if you feel like essential oils disrupt the microbiome, which I think we talked about that a little bit with oral health, but yeah, go into more like gut microbiome, skin microbiome for applying them to our skin, how that you feel that affects the microbiome.
As I stated earlier, essential oils are selective, so they aren't going to indiscriminately kill all microbes in your microbiome. The interesting thing about essential oils is that the current published and unpublished research suggests that essential oils act somewhat like a prebiotic. Now, we typically define prebiotics as fibers that probiotics feed on and ferment to thrive. However, we need to broaden this definition to any substance that promotes a favorable environment for beneficial microbiota to sustain life. The existing research shows that essential oils produce favorable shifts in the gut microbiota and help inhibit undesirable microbes, and then also promote the growth and maintenance of the commensal or beneficial microbes that are found inside the microbiota or microbiome.
And microbiome is so important. I feel like there's been a lot more of a spotlight on that as protecting us, right? Like, because it lives all over the outside of our hands. I mean, it's like our immune system. And so it's really such a protective, and there's pounds and pounds of it, right? Like there's a lot of good beneficial bacteria, and
current estimates suggest there's more microbes in our body than there are human cells. So we could make an argument that humans are microbial beings. So.
That's kind of creepy, but interesting to understand that that's why we don't want to disrupt that terribly. I mean, even too much hand washing with the wrong soaps can disrupt that on your skin. So that's awesome. I'm so thankful for you to help. And I had never heard of essential oils kind of working as the prebiotic before. So I was really fascinated when I saw that you had brought light to that. So one of our last things I would like to learn is, you've been utilizing essential oils for many years, studying them. I mean, you probably study them more than anybody I know, but what is your daily routine like how do you use essential oils and natural, either capsules or however? I would love to hear because I want to copy some of it.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I tell you is one thing you can't copy is, I'm hair challenged. So being bald, my scalp and head needs some daily TLC. So I have a mixture of carrier oils with frankincense, sandalwood, cedarwood, and vetiver that I apply most days onto my scalp. Some days I switch it up and I'll apply a carrier oil with like spruce or another oil just because I want a different aroma for the day. You mentioned hand soaps. My hand soaps and my bar soaps all also contain essential oils, so I'm using them daily for cleansing. I diffuse oils in my office. My diffuser's going right now as we speak, and I rotate regularly what I put in there, but one of my favorite combinations is frankincense and orange. I've told people this is like my day changer blend because it's just so uplifting. It just puts a smile on your face. To the point that, like, I've had people come to my office and I have that diffusing and they'll say, "What did you have in your diffuser?" And I'll tell them. And then later on in the week, I go to their office for something and they're diffusing the same thing. So I also take supplements with essential oils, such as a fish oil that contains orange essential oil. I take curcumin with turmeric oil, the essential oil. I apply a beard oil that contains essential oils regularly. Outside of that, I'll use essential oils based on my needs. I'll use tea tree oil when I need an immune boost. Helichrysum if I need to restore the skin because it's been damaged or wounded. Blends that contain wintergreen and peppermint for muscle soreness after a workout. So really, I don't go a day without using them in some way. In fact, I had a friend reach out to me that was saying, hey, I got this new product that I've been using, and I really would like your opinion on it. I'd like to just send you some so you can try it and tell me what you think. And he goes, but the one thing you have to do is you can't use essential oils while you're using it because I want you to see if this has any effect without using your essential oils. And so I politely declined. I said, look, I'm not going to take your product for a week and not use my essential oils. So I'll have to decline using that.
Oh, those are some good things. And, you know, all my years of using essential oils, I'm not quite sure I ever put frankincense and wild orange together. So now I'm reluctant.
Try it.
So do you do more of one, or is it just kind of equal ratios, like 5 and 5?
I'll typically do about 4 parts frankincense to 1 part orange.
Okay, so very interesting. I love that. Well, this has been a really fun conversation, and I would love for listeners also to know that you have your very own podcast, and you've appeared as a guest on many other podcasts as well, but your podcast is called Regaining Health. Oh gosh, I'm going to mess it up. Health and Humanity.
That's right.
Regaining Health and Humanity. And you have fantastic information on there. I was just saying before we started this podcast, you had Lauren Bush on talking about women's health and hormones. Is your latest episode, and it was just fantastic. I really enjoyed that. So you have the latest research on your Facebook page, and you also have an Instagram presence, and we'll be sure in the show notes to drop all of those ways to get in contact with you. You have books, like 20 books. Is it 20 or is it actually more than that? Is it?
Yeah, you know,
sure
it's 27, and I have my 28th coming out in July, and then I already have my 29th scheduled for about a November release. So
wow, that's fantastic. And you know, for someone to write one book, I hear about like how hard that is, and they can't wait to be done with it. I can't imagine writing that many books, and like the stuff that you put together is like deep. Like there's really good information on there on understanding an essential oils at a very deep level, but yet it's applicable. Like we can utilize these resources and grow from them. And even if you forget it, which like it's sometimes hard for me to retain, like the book is there, and you just put a little sticky note in there, and you keep tabs on where that is. So just so thankful for all that you do for all of us in the wellness space, to help educate us and empower us to be healers in our home and to take our wellness in our own hands. And so I do have 3 questions to ask that I've been asking all my guests, just to get to know you better. So the first one is, do you prefer sweet or savory?
That's going to depend on what we eat. If it's like meat or other dishes, definitely savory. But if we're talking dessert, it's got to be sweet.
Oh, yeah. I'm right there with you. I know. I feel like these are really hard questions because they can go either way. So are you an early bird or a night owl?
Definitely an early bird. I mean, for me, sleeping in is 6 or 6:30. So I'm definitely up early.
That is my husband and I. I feel like we get up with the birds. We love the sunset coming in through the windows, and it just gets us awake. We don't have blinds. We just like to kind of wake up with the earth. So I love that. And I feel like it just makes for a better day when I don't sleep in. Okay, so tea or coffee? Maybe you steer away from caffeine altogether, but if you were to choose, is there one you might choose over the other?
Yeah, definitely herbal teas. So I don't drink coffee, and the teas, I just stick to the herbal teas. I do drink those, and of course they have some medicinal value as well. So I like to incorporate them in.
One of my favorites is a rooibos tea. I drink that 2 or 3 times a day. It's caffeine free. Have you drank any of those?
I have before, yes.
Yeah. My daughter for Mother's Day got me a blueberry rooibos tea, and it is like to die for. And we found some local honey that's from an apiary, like with they have all kinds of, I don't know what all they have, but they've opened the fruits like a cranberry and apple. And the honey with that is so delicious. So I'm definitely a tea person as well. So, well, thank you so much. Any ending remarks that you'd like to share with our listeners, or anything new that that might be fun to share, or even what your book's about, your new upcoming book?
Yeah, the one coming out in July is going to be all about how essential oils work with specific cellular and molecular targets and biological pathways in the body. So it's really going to be a deep dive into not just what essential oils do and the outcomes, but how they're doing it within the body, which to me is really fascinating. I really like to see these mechanisms by which they work, because it really helps me guide the clinical use of essential oils and knowing which one might work better for a specific condition, because that can be challenging for some people. You may say, I feel a lot of sadness and I don't want to feel that every day. And so there's lots of options that you can use. You have orange and you have lemon and you have frankincense. And so you have this whole host of essential oils you can use. But by knowing which molecular targets they work on, we can narrow it down to certain essential oils that work on the inflammation that occurs in the brain that contributes to that, or the processing of insulin and glucose in the brain that can do that, or even can inhibit like the MAO enzymes and acetylcholinesterase enzymes. So this helps us really dial in our clinical use to a far greater level by knowing these things. So that one's coming out in July, and I think that one is going to be a really fun book, but it's accessible to anybody. If you don't have a scientific background, I explain all of the different mechanisms, the molecular targets, the enzymes, and why it's important, why it's acting on that. But the last thing I'd just say in parting is, I think it's really important to have belief in yourself, belief in the healing power of your own body. And it is really your body that does the healing. It is not anything that you take or do. These are all supporting or hindering that body's ability to support homeostasis and to be in a state of health. And so really believe that your body was divinely designed to maintain health and to be in its best healthy state. We can help it by using these natural products. And so definitely leverage these natural products to help you get back to that state, or to maintain the state of health that you want.
Oh, that's a beautiful perspective, and so true. Our bodies are so amazing, and if we just give it what nature has given us, it's amazing what it will do. So that's just such a beautiful statement to end on. So thank you so much for joining us. I'll be sure to drop all the ways to get in contact with you in our show notes so that people can continue to be educated and be in the wellness space with you and follow along on your journey. Really excited about your new upcoming books. I'm really specifically excited about that one in July, because I love learning about the systems and how that all works. And I love that you'll break it down so that I can understand it at a 5th grade level, which is what I need. So thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Scott Johnson. And if you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe and look for us in future upcoming podcasts to bring you health and wellness. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much. That was so good. I loved it. So much juicy information. Yeah, thank you. And I'm not sure when this one will air, but I'll make sure that we do some teasers that I tag you if that's helpful in any way. And if there's anything more you think of that I could share in the show notes on ways that they could get in contact with you, I'm happy to do that. And I'll keep pushing for doTERRA to keep getting you on stage, because you're so good. So tell me real quick before we end, You said you are speaking, is it Europe? Is that where you're going, or you're speaking somewhere?
No, next week I'm going to the Latino leadership event in Florida, so I'll be doing that.
Good.
And then at the end of June, I'm going on the diamond sourcing trip to Pennsylvania.
Oh, that's us.
Oh,
That's so fun. So we are like 3 hours from the Birch Distillery, but yeah. When are they coming for that? When is that diamond trip? We went up and met with them the last time they came for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I could probably. I was just thinking.
June 24th through the 27th.
Nice. You will enjoy that. Have you been to the Birch Distillery?
I haven't been to that one yet, so
you'll love that.
Interesting.
Yeah, you'll love that. Well, hopefully they'll get you in on convention or leadership or one of those events too soon. Would love to see you speak to us on there. So thank you so much, though, for joining me today and taking the time out of your busy schedule.
You bet.
And for all that you do for us. Great. Thanks, Scott. Have a great day.
Okay, we'll see ya.
Bye.